Hey guys, and welcome to Betwixt the Books, and welcome to our review of Cruel Seduction, which is the fifth book in the Dark Olympus series by Katee Robert. We have reviewed all of the other ones. Well, Gretchen reviewed the first one, and then together we reviewed everything else. But on the channel, there is a review of all of them. So in theory, we've reviewed all of them, but we're on book number 5. And we continue this saga of reading all of these reviews. Yeah.
Every new entry into this series is a brand new conversation that Michaela and I get to have. For example, this time, how much hate sex is too much?
Any? Who knows?
This entry into the Dark Olympus series may not have been our flavor of dark. However, complaining that this entry into the Dark Olympus series was a little dark it's an us problem. That one's on us.
Yeah. So if you didn't know, this book is a 4-way polycule polyamorous starring Aphrodite, Eris as Aphrodite, Theseus as Hephaestus, Adonis, and Pandora in a conglomerate where all of them are having a relationship with Aphrodite, but Pandora is not having a relationship with any of the men, and the men are having a relationship with each other as well as with Aphrodite. So if you're seeing this, it's like a triangle with a little offshoot.
If you have no idea who any of those characters are, this will have spoilers for the previous 4 books.
Yes.
You cannot escape it.
Yeah.
This is absolutely a review that you have got to have read the other books.
Yeah.
If not, go check out those other videos we mentioned, because we are too deep in the weeds on this story.
Yeah.
There's no coming back from this now.
Yeah. Unavoidable. Impossible to get around. Yeah. Plot-wise, this one starts off with the political marriage of Hephaestus and Aphrodite. Aphrodite, in order to cement this political marriage, has broken up with Adonis, who is her longtime boyfriend. And Pandora is Hephaestus's best friend. Yes. That's where we're starting. And at the end, we get that weird polycule. So starting point, polycule at the end. That's what you're looking for.
If you forgot the world building moment of tension that we're in the previous book, there was a house party where Theseus killed the previous Hephaestus, who was an older dude we knew very little about. We're not sad that he's gone because we didn't know him. Goodbye. But anyway, Theseus is a murderer, and he is working for Minos, who has come into Olympus from goodness knows where to try to destabilize and take some control. The Minos and the Minotaur and his family, they also showed up in Wicked Beauty because they tried to win the title of Ares in that competition, lost to Helen, who was Eris's sister. And so their other thing there was, okay, we're going to activate this little known assassination clause, which basically says that if Theseus kills Hephaestus, he becomes a new Hephaestus. The citizens of Olympus had no idea this clause existed, and now there's just murder everywhere.
Well, attempted murder.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, wait, anybody can attempt to kill any of them and then just get that power for themselves? There's no way this could go bad.
No one will get hurt in the making of this movie.
Wrong. You can kind of see how that's playing out, because now that this cat is out of the bag, this assassination clause, that's the main driving factor of the, not even the antagonist. What is that? The like stress, the like external stress on the relationship.
Yeah,
I guess
the source of tension.
Yeah. Yes.
And conflict throughout and the also other little known thing that they've been talking about for multiple books, but does not seem to be a problem yet, is that something barrier Olympus something fading.
Yes. Yeah. The reason that it's a problem that Theseus has become a member of the 13 is because they need the 13 to be working together to prevent outsiders from coming to the city, because they'll take over the city as well. So yeah, We don't know who the outsiders are, but they want whatever is going on in Olympus. So that also is just like background overarching plot happening. Anyway, overall opinions. You want to give yours? I can give mine.
How to do this in short form, because we will be discussing this.
Yes.
This book is too much book. In the sense that, well, first of all, there is a distinct first half and a distinct second half, and it's trying to do two separate things with a relationship in both those halves.
Yes.
And because there is all of this plot going on, and then you have four people trying to figure out various relationship dynamics, there is a lot going on.
Yes.
And it's just trying to do all of that to its, like, 3D fully fleshed out capacity is just not, I really don't think is actually even possible within the constraints of
one book.
This book.
This
book itself.
I feel like it needed more than one book to work out all of this because it was very fast paced.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want that to be like, I did enjoy it. We will talk about where we think this ranks also in the series in general. It's definitely not one of my favorites. But I don't want you to come away with the impression that I think that it's a bad book. I just think it's a very confused book.
Yeah. I mentioned this to Gretchen when I was reading it, and then also just like as a thing that I wanted to discuss, and it was that I don't think I would have finished this book if we weren't doing it for review, which is the first time that I felt that way with any Katee Roberts books. Like generally I eat those up like popcorn. Even the last Dark Olympus one, which I struggled a little bit because that one was very slow paced, at least romance wise. I felt like I maybe wouldn't have sat and zoomed through it in one sitting, but I would have finished the book on my own. Whereas this one, because of this like very distinct split in half thing, I very much enjoyed the second half of it more so than the first half. But like, that's not enough for a book, right? Like I shouldn't have to say to somebody like, oh, like if you get past the 150 page mark, then things are going to get like, that's too much investment in a book. Like it shouldn't be that way. So I personally, again, not a bad book. I still enjoyed it. Probably 3 stars for me overall, but it's not one of my favorites by any means. And I alluded to the fact when we were talking in our reading roundup last week. I think that came out last week, whatever the last video was. When did it?
What is time?
What is time? That I don't like hate sex in general, and we knew that going into this one there was going to be some hate sex, and the beginning of this obviously is going to have the hate sex part. So like this maybe is like, Michaela, that's a you problem, which totally could be the case. Totally could be me. I just can't, it's not sexy to me. And so when it's not sexy and I'm not feeling like the relationships are developing in a way that makes sense to me, like it's hard to buy into a book, So.
It's very different. Like hate sex is just like, it's not my favorite trope either, but I feel crankier about it when the reason they kiss is because the author said so, as opposed to like it actually developing in a certain way. Especially because I felt so squicky about Theseus already going like into this, and I said that in our review of the last book. I was like, you're going to have to do some significant work with him for me to feel comfortable with him as a romantic lead, because just the way that he has been portrayed in the last several books was kind of like,
Yeah, it's hard to see him as sympathetic in any capacity.
Yeah.
And even
just that alone that this book had to carry through is just like
and overcome.
It was a lot of work.
And you felt like she didn't do it successfully too, I don't think, right? Like we talked a bit when we were texting about how Eros has this thing too, and from the second book, where
I was just gonna say Electric Idol.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't going to say the title there. I was just going to say, yes, it's from Electric Idol, the second book, where he's got this negative connotation as like a murderer, like psychopath. And then you go into that book and immediately he's not that. Like, very much he's like, I am a beautiful cinnamon bun who is in love with my wife. And I love her so much. She is the best human that ever existed. Golden Retriever boy following after her. So, like, while he has this, like, connotation that we're told, like, he's this bad guy, he's not when you see him. Whereas I think definitely at the beginning of this book, Theseus is living up to his, like, ruthlessness. He's having thoughts during the wedding about how he can kill Helen or, like, get back at her for screwing up his knee. Like, he's not a good person. And then you kind of get, like, this... Pandora's supposed to act as like, well, he's not always a bad guy. He's just a bad guy towards the people who are perceived enemies. And if you're one of his people, then he's nice to you. And
yeah. They try to like do the thing they did with Eros, but it's just like just because like Pandora is there to say, well, he really has been, you know, he just had a bad childhood and is a good person. I'm like, okay, you can say that.
We don't see it though.
You want.
Yeah.
I don't see it. And I think, I mean, the secondary problem is the motivations for most of these people having sex with each other in the first half of the book, which is just not good. Especially when you consider that they then are going to be in a polycule, and it's just, So I understand, I don't like hate sex, but especially the first sex scene, which is Aphrodite and Festus on their wedding night.
Consummated marriage, yeah.
Totally makes sense, because the whole point is that they do not want to leave the other person out to have the marriage annulled. Like they're going through with this and they are committing to it. They don't like it, but they're committed to it. And that requires them to consummate the marriage. And so that round of hate sex, like, okay, great. You know, again, I don't like hate sex, but motivations are clear. They end up both enjoying it more than they expected, and they're kind of confused by that. But like, okay. And then things just get weirder.
So I described this where the first thing that didn't make sense to me was, I understand why Aphrodite would go after Pandora, because she actively says that's his best friend. If I can get her on my side, then maybe I could either get her to help convince him to be on my side or use her as leverage, because I know that that's the only person that Theseus cares about, because Theseus and Pandora are a matched set. They're best friends. Theseus doesn't do anything unless Pandora's coming with him. So like, we know that she is like his quote unquote weak point. So I get why Aphrodite would go after her. What we don't understand is why Pandora's like, yes, I must sleep with my best friend's wife immediately.
Who I know does not like my best friend and is actively plotting against him. At that point, Pandora's like, Eris could probably murder Theseus, but like, we're gonna get down.
Yeah, I'm gonna let her get me off in a sex dungeon. Okay, Pandora, sure. And then at the same time, Aphrodite's ex, Adonis, comes up to Theseus and goes, she's making a fool of you, dude. Let me help you out. I'm gonna help you out over here. And I'm like, why though? Why are you helping the known murderer who you know is coming in here to, like, he could kill her. Like, you don't know like what his motivations are at all. And your thought is to help.
And when Adonis shows up the first time, it's because Aphrodite knew better than to invite him to her wedding. But Theseus, because he's being an a-hole, is like, I'm gonna invite your ex to the wedding. And so one of the first interactions is like, why were you being mean to me? Like, from Adonis. Like, Theseus directly attacked Adonis where it hurt, and Adonis is like, I have decided that I want to help you. Oh, and then, by the way, I would like to go down on you.
Yes. What? Again, I'm still in love with my ex. She crushed me and dumped me to be in this political marriage with you that she doesn't even want. Right? right? Like she broke my heart, but I'm gonna help you, and also you're sexy. Like, what is happening here? So these two like side characters that are joining in and are like necessary and important to Aphrodite and Hephaestus like coming together and like being on even terms. They're like are necessary for that. Like we don't understand why they're doing what they're doing in these relationships. So it's like, what am I watching? This feels like author intervention, which both of us don't like. Like that's like one of the biggest, like, we know that we need them to get here, so we're just gonna go with it until they get here. And we don't like when that happens as characters.
And I'm not saying necessarily that maybe they couldn't have taken the this route to get together, but because it happened so fast. Like there is no like midpoint on this journey. We go from I don't like you and I don't like you and you're married to and to just be like to just sex.
Like I think it's within 3 days. Like literally it's like a 3-day time span from the wedding till them like the like turning point for the relationship of them all coming together. What?
What?
How does that happen?
Why? Because especially for me, one of my favorite parts about a romance novel is the coming together.
Yeah.
I love a good relationship where people don't like enemies to lovers. I'm a huge fan of that. I love when people are messy. Second chance romances too. They've hurt each other in the past, and this is the story of them coming together and fixing their issues. Like those are some of my favorite things. And I felt like this novel just decided in the space of like less than, I don't know, 50 pages for these people to just go from A to Z. And I was like, where are all of the letters in between? You didn't even give me like an F, a W, like nothing. And so that was frustrating to me just because of what I value a romance novel to do for relationship building. Because yeah, the last one, Radiant Sin, was a slow burn. So let me tell you, if you were like, wow, this had a really low spice level for a book titled like the Dark Olympus series, let me tell you something.
Lots of spice.
The spice just went poof.
Yes, yeah.
Is
so much sex. All of it.
And I'm not opposed, but I want you to have earned it.
Yeah.
And for me not to feel a little bit weird while it's happening, like, oh,
yeah,
uncomfy.
We both specifically called out the first time that Theseus and Adonis have sex as weird, because literally it's the first time they're having sex and they're both like, this is love sex. And it's like, is it? You guys met each other yesterday. What are you talking about? What?
And like maybe from Adonis, because he's kind of been proved to be like in the beginning, he tells Eris like, yeah, like let's give it up, you and I, even knowing what he knows after having been with her on and off for a decade about how devoted she is to the city. He shows up on her wedding day as like, run away with me, we can give this all up and go live out. And it's just like, you had to know she was gonna say no, but he tried it anyway. So like maybe I'll take it from Adonis.
Yes.
But like Theseus also, I was just like,
who are you?
Huh? What?
Yeah. One of my things was I didn't understand why Eris broke up with Adonis in the first place, because obviously she doesn't have a problem with extramarital sex, because she immediately goes after Pandora. So I'm like, why weren't you just like, it's fine, I'll be married to this guy, but we'll still be in a relationship? Like
I think it was because she was trying to protect him.
Okay.
I think her thing was that, Theseus already knew she kind of had a soft spot for him, and to continue to have him engaged would just put a larger target
on his back,
I guess.
Back. Sure, okay, maybe. It wasn't fully explained, I don't think, because it just sounded like, what it sounded like in the beginning was, I'm getting married, so we can't be in a relationship anymore. It like wasn't described as like, I don't want you close to me because it's going to put you in danger. That wasn't what it was described as. I don't know. Anyway, didn't get it. Didn't understand it. Felt too fast, a little bit rushed. it's hard with that many people. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was one of the things that Gretchen said was that she was looking at reviews before we read the book, and she said that a lot of people said this was really good polyamory rep. And I wanted to talk about whether I felt like that was the case. And one of the first things that I said, I was like halfway through the book, was I'm like, this is not good polyamory rep because it's lacking the one core tenet of polyamory, which is open and honest communication, because none of these characters are doing that right now at all, even a little bit. Like, they're so all do like, it's cheating, it's manipulating, it's like, none of this is good polyamory rep. And maybe they get to a point where it would be good polyamory rep, where you're seeing open and honest communication and like seeing different ways that polyamory can work, right? Like, there's people who can have only one person is having a relationship with them, and everybody can have a relationship all together, or individual relationships within there. Like, that sort of rep, sure, you're seeing a different way that a polycule could look that isn't just like everybody having sex with everybody sort of thing. Okay. But I don't think that I would be like, this is how polyamory should work. Like, I'm not going to hand this to somebody who's like, I would like to see what a good representation of polyamory is. I'm never going to do that, ever. Just not going to happen.
I mean, I do just want to say that we both agree that like there's this beautiful turning point scene.
Yes.
Halfway through the book where they all kind of get to reevaluate and like see how like they're all like, I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, they're all just like sharing a meal. And all of a sudden you watch it, because this is a quadruple POV, quad POV. You get to see what's happening from all of their perspectives, which was really wonderful. In the beginning, a little bit, I was worried we were only going to have Theseus and Eris's point of views, and that didn't end up happening. I do think they end up getting more because more things happen to them, but we get everybody. So you see from everyone's perspective, like kind of all of them kind of having these individual revelations of like, oh. And from that point on, I think we both agree the dynamic is really wonderful, and like kind of showing how in this 4-person setup, every single one of them brings something unique to the situation.
Yes, and that's the only thing that I think is helpful to as being an advocate for polyamory, which is that sometimes one person can't give you everything you need. So the like turning point being that like this one person can support me in this way, and this one person can support me in this way, and it's okay for me to need and want both of them, or all three of them in this case. They each can serve a purpose in helping me be whole and supported and doing what I need to do. Not in like, I can't do it on my own, but in that like, we all need support as humans. Like, we're social creatures, and that's what polyamory can sort of bring. Not just like the sexual side of stuff, because that's also a thing. Like, people like, I have certain kinks that you can only do with this person and only do with that person, because not everybody's into everything. Like, that definitely exists. But you also get the emotional relationship side in here, which is that this person can support me in this way, and this person can support me in this way. And actually, this relationship is strengthened by adding this person to our dynamic. Yeah. So that does have that, but yeah, no, I don't think that overall this is like great polyamory.
No, well, and we were, you know, to consider this within the series as a whole as well. You know, this is not her first poly relationship in the series, and the next one is also a triad as well. But one of the things that we think worked better in the past and probably will work better in the future is that parts of those relationships were already established. And so in Wicked Beauty, Achilles and Patroclus had been together for a long time. And so they both knew how well they worked together and also knew the ways in which they didn't really work. And so they were already a really tight unit. And then they just had to establish a relationship with Helen. So there wasn't as much, I don't want to say as much, but like they could focus on different things. And then this one, yes, you have the fact that Eris and Adonis have been together for about a decade off and on. But you know that it's just been really tumultuous. And then again, it starts off with the manipulation and then this and that. And you're like, was that really a healthy relationship, even if they've been together for a decade?
Yeah.
And then, Pandora and Theseus have been really, really good friends. They're not romantically involved and have no desire to be. So, that is technically already established, but it's just like, it just had less foundational work already done. And so in the book, trying to juggle like a million assassination attempts, and all of this political machination, what's going on, plus this quad trying to figure their life out when they start with the bulk of them all hating each other.
Yeah.
Just like there was
We're
a
not
lot
trusting
more work
each
to
other
do in this one. Yeah.
The only other thing that we wanted to mention, and we aren't going to spoil it, is that we were not satisfied with the ending. And yeah. Yes, yeah. Half of it was understandable. The other half of it felt like it came out of nowhere and is a bit weird, and maybe it'll make more sense as it goes forward with based on the changes that are going in the political changes that are going to be taking place because of the way this book ended. But I think it hit us both like across the face. Like it was like, what? This isn't what I was expecting to happen here. Okay, sure.
There are 0 things that have been set up in character motivations to have made particularly half of that make sense. And in fact, I would argue that there were things set up that would specifically suggest that this is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea, and that the characters involved have to know on some level that it's a terrible, terrible idea. And it just ends up feeling weird, potentially selfish, which didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deeply confusing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have
and
the answers.
If you are going to like engage with us about the ending, which we invite you to do down in the comments, just make sure you do a solid spoiler warning. Hit the enter button a few times to hide it under the show more, because we would love if someone could like explain that to us or help it make more sense. And like Michaela said, maybe it will make more sense in later books.
Yeah.
But it was just like,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Weird choices were made by at least one involved. One of them was like, yeah, okay, that was a smart choice because this wasn't right for you. This wasn't a good choice for you. But like, what? On the second one? What? Is that really what just happened? Okay, sure. That's one way to end and it's like literally like the last note of the book is that. So
it's done.
And it's done. I was
like,
oh.
What?
Yeah. So yeah, that's our thoughts on I want to say Radiant Sin again, which is not correct. Cruel Seduction. I don't know why my brain keeps saying Radiant Sin, but that's not right. It's Cruel Seduction, book 5 in the Dark Olympus series, and we will be back probably in January with Midnight Ruin, which is I'm looking forward to.
Like it comes out on like January 1st, so I think we'll be back sometime in December, hopefully to do an arc review.
Okay.
Because we already have the arc from Edelweiss.
Yeah.
And I'm trying desperately not to read it months before we go to review it. Because then Michaela will be like, hey, what about that thing that happened? And I'll be like,
what? I mean, we could always read it early and review it early and then just tack it on when we're like posted ahead of time. We are allowed to do that, but we do also have another book that we need to read for this month. So
then we have to wait longer for the next one.
That's
And
true.
I think, given we've definitely had our issues with some of these later books in the series,
Yeah.
but I will say that each one leaves you enough breadcrumbs to be like, okay, like maybe that wasn't as satisfying as I wanted, but the next one.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I'm still in. Like, I'm still totally down for the series. Like, not every book is for you. Like, these tropes weren't the tropes that I wanted, and like that's totally fine and valid. But Katee has done like most of the books by Katee that I have read, I have thoroughly enjoyed and had a good time. So I'm just because there's like one or two that aren't as good as I want, doesn't mean that the series as a whole is a write-off. Yeah. So we totally are gonna read more in general. Yeah. What are we doing next time, Gretchen? Raffles.
So, as Michaela just said, we actually do or should have two ARC reviews coming at you this month. The first is obviously this one, and the second one should be Thornhenge by T. Kingfisher. If you did not see, T. Kingfisher is the exceptional writer that made me say nice things about a horror novella, which are two things that I don't really ever say nice things about. And so when we saw that they had another book coming out that seemed really interesting to both of us, we felt that we just really wanted to read that together because an exceptional writer who makes when I have an author that makes me like things I feel that I wouldn't otherwise, I'm like, amazing. Read everything you write now. So hopefully we'll be back for that. And, you know, we are doing more reading roundtables, and we are really excited that we're thinking about having some themed episodes for those coming up. So we're still innovating and doing new things and hoping to end, you know, the year with consistency. So those are our plans, and we hope we make them. Thanks, guys. Bye.